Hello, Jared Nyberg, back from Bhutan. These leaves are Suja tea leaves, so this is Camellia Sinensis with a little bit of mistletoe. What's cool about the tea I have in my hand is this is from Samcholing, and the Samcholing folks are making Suja using Camellia Sinensis, but that's not even close to the norm. And you see how dark that liquid is, just from a very small dose, and it's really pleasant. Before going, I did a short video about our interest in Suja, this ingredient in butter tea. Suja literally means butter tea. I'm going to make jatan today, which is the tea without the butter and the salt. And on Instagram, I posted a video of us making a Suja latte. And I'm going to do a different episode where I show you how to actually make butter tea. But this is the raw material. So this is the Suja tea leaves. I had an amazing time with Mew and the crew over at O5, Pedro Vigilon and his team. And we got to visit many different regions. We started in Paro. We went to Punakha, some mountains near Punakha and Wangdu. And we got to go up 4,000 meters above sea level and hang out with the Lamo family. And we got to meet, the dad and the mom and Migma, who was the daughter, and she had really good English, and she was explaining to us about how to make the teas. And she had this whole presentation of the different tea leaves that they harvest, etc. What was a really big takeaway is that in Bhutan, where we thought we were going to visit a bunch of tea fields, there was really one major tea garden, Samcholing, which we visited on, I think, day 4 or 5 or something. And it was in Trongsa. But before going to Trongsa, again, we were in this area near Punakha, and we learned that tea in Bhutan, when they make tea in Bhutan, they're doing this ash water boil of wild-crafted tisanes, not even Camellia Sinensis. And the reason for that is to sort of fill in an import sort of hole, vacuum, when over the past few thousand years, when they couldn't get their hands on pu'er, or like the cake tea as they call it, for their butter teas, they would make their own tea using these wild tisanes. But they weren't committed to using the Camellia Sinensis leaves. What's cool about the tea I have in my hand is this is from Samcholing, and the Samcholing folks are making Suja using Camellia Sinensis, but that's not even close to the norm. In this is also some mistletoe, and mistletoe is toxic. So that's kind of cool to drink a toxic tea, right? But the reality here is that through this ash water boil, and ash is very alkaline, they're doing 4 hours of boiling, then they're drying it for 3 days, chopping it up, and then they're doing another ash water boil for 4 hours, and then 3 days of drying. You're really doing a lot to manage the leaves and change the properties of the leaves. And if you're ever into sort of wild-crafted vegetables, it's a similar thing you need to do, such as boiling them for a really long time, then tossing out the water because you're removing a bunch of the toxins so that you can consume them, the plant. This is my kind of idea. You do see kind of baking soda and ash used for processing other wild harvests, even in Japan. So it's kind of interesting. So these leaves, again, are Suja tea leaves. So this is Camellia Sinensis with a little bit of mistletoe. I have other butter tea leaves that are not Camellia Sinensis at all, but I thought I'd start with these. When I make it like a pu'er, and it looks a lot like a pu'er, I don't know if you can see that okay in the there you go. This is it's makes a really dark liquid. When you make it too strong, like a gongfucha, it gets almost too alkaline. And although it tastes good, it makes me feel kind of weird. So I don't like to do that. I make it just regular style, like kind of like English style tea, or I kind of do like a lighter extraction, and it's fantastic. And that's what they do at Origin. At Origin, they use a small amount of leaves, and they keep it on the stove, kind of like a samovar in Russia, and they just boil the heck out of it like all day, and it'll just hang out on the stove all day. And then they take that extraction, and they're going to put it into a pot, and they're going to add milk and butter and salt, and then they're going to put it into a butter churn, and they're going to churn the heck out of it. And if they don't have a butter churn, then they use a branch. It's actually called a jatu. It looks like that, and it looks to me like a jatu is like the ancestor of the chasen, because they've been using this for thousands of years. And I can imagine how that would have transformed into the whisks that we see today. I don't know, though. It's just a wild guess based off of the fact that this is really ancient. And that pretty core Buddhist country where a lot of sort of ancient Buddhism is credited coming from, that sort of Tibet and Bhutan area. And Zen Buddhism is what's responsible for sort of bringing tea to Japan through Korea. And so I'm feeling this connection there. So what I've done is I've used 4 grams of the tea leaves, and I am brewing them very quickly, about 15 seconds. I did 180 grams of water. You can't see it right now, but my tray here was built for me by the guy who built my bar, Jess Williams, and it has a scale built into it, so I can actually see the weights. And you see how dark that liquid is, just from a very small dose, very quick extraction, rinse. And at this point, it actually tastes really nice. And I found that folks that I share this with are really on board. Like, this is not some sort of weird obscure tea that you got to kind of grow to like. And I actually think pu'er, for the uninitiated, is a hard tea to really enjoy from the get-go. I think most people kind of grow to like it, like maybe like a stinky cheese or something like that, where like at the beginning you're like, I don't know what I'm eating, but then later on you're like, oh my God, all I want is stinky cheese. So, you know, it's kind of like that with some pu'ers, whereas this tea is a really easy to enjoy tea. I'm gonna hand some to Mark here, video guy. Cheers, Mark. Yeah. And that is very, very, very dark. I mean, you can see it in the glass here. Okay, you smell that? And it's just really pleasant. It's a very kind of almost syrupy. There's a good amount of body to it without it being overwhelming. It has the appearance of sort of like a pu'er in that it's quite brackish. And it just made me think, like, they were using like rose bush leaves and a relative of the willow tree leaves. They were using a relative of like the cherry or the apple, which was really interesting. St. John's wort, Bhutanese. I didn't know, but St. John's wort grows naturally in Bhutan. Who knew? And it's been used forever as an ingredient for Suja. It's not used in large amounts, but it's there for aromatics. Kind of interesting. We actually visited, when we were in Bhutan, we visited a kind of a knowledge holder elder lady. She agreed to meet with us even though she was busy packing her groceries on a yak before she went hunting cordyceps. And she's like 80 years old or something. And she's got, I guess if you live in the outskirts, the government gives you a license for Highlanders and folks that are connected with Highlanders to harvest cordyceps. And it's helped turn around the economic sort of status or financial sort of like poverty of the Highlanders significantly, because cordyceps do really well on the world market. She was talking to us about Suja production, and so there was that mountain near Punakha. There was our time in Thimphu where we saw some more like finished products that were being sold as Suja butter tea. We saw the Samcholing actual tea garden in Trongsa making Suja, and all of these different places had their own sort of recipe, but it worked with the same theme: this ash water boil, this multi-day drying process, and the reboiling and the multi-day drying process. So it's a very apparently at Samcholing they were like, this is way harder to make than the green tea and the crimson tea for us, but we were afraid that the sort of cultural importance or our investment in this kind of tea was going to get lost because people are more interested in Camellia Sinensis tea leaves. And when we were alongside Pedro and his team at O5, very adamantly interested in this very unique Bhutanese tea, they got really excited because they were like, this is something unique that we do, that we've done for thousands of years, and they're not suddenly they went from the Padawan learners. They have great product going in. Their tea leaves are gorgeous, very high elevation, beautiful environment. Like you could not ask for better. But they went from sort of like, okay, how do we turn this into good product? They've been doing it for 70 years, which is a long time, but not as long as some farms that have been doing it for 7, 8, 9, 10, 25 generations, right? So a lot to catch up on there. But you start talking about the butter tea, suddenly the legacy is there. Really, really nice. And you get some nice aromatics. You get that soft texture going down. You get a really interesting nose, you know? You're not just tasting something fairly bland that you sort of don't remember tomorrow. This is a good tea. Anyway, so that is our jatan, made with leaves from the Samcholing Cooperative in Tromsø. They put in a little bit of mistletoe, even though we asked them to just do Camellia Sinensis leaves. They did just Camellia Sinensis leaves last year, and the samples that we had a chance to try were fantastic. They felt the need to put in some mistletoe this year, and that's okay. That's part of the history, but we're going to try and get just pure Camellia Sinensis version, and we're also going to try and do like the more technically traditional version, which is these blends of wild-crafted tea, like tisanes, not really technically tea. It's not technically, again, the Camellia Sinensis tea leaves. We're also going to experiment with aging this tea. We feel that there's a great opportunity there. We were talking to some of the locals, and they were interested in potentially aging some of these teas in some of the monasteries, so we could see what that does for the tea leaves. And there's a big future here. This is just the beginning of something that I think is super powerful, super interesting, super fascinating. So we're going to post some videos, and they're going to be of our trip. We meant to do this while we were away. Did not have a strong enough internet connection to make it happen. This is sort of my post video. You already saw my pre-video, and then we're going to start releasing some videos of our time there, and that'll be in a series that we'll release over the next few weeks moving forward. So again, thank you for watching. This has been a short episode of JagaVision. We're back in town. We're excited. We learned a lot. Happy to share it with you. Please watch the next episodes. They're going to be super interesting. Thank you so much. I'm Jared. Go to JagaSilk.com, and you will see Suja tea leaves on there soon. And if you don't, send me some heat. Say, you got to put that up on the website, Jared. Okay.